Hi, I'm Sue and I'm going to show you how to sew two pieces of fabric together. This is an important skill if you want to just join fabrics for clothing, join fabrics for a quilt, join fabrics for a decorative patch that you're going to put onto clothing. It's the first basic skill in sewing. Okay, so the equipment that you need is all laid out here. I've got a thread which is quite a thick thread, which I like to use because I don't mind if you see stitches, because I'm really all about textile art. So part of seeing the stitches is part of the fun. I've got two pieces of fabric here. I've got a needle. This needle is a chenille needle, size 3, and that's a bigger needle than you would normally use or normally need, but it's a nice comfortable needle to use. It'll take this thick thread, and I've got a pair of scissors. So the first step is to thread your needle. First step is to pick up your needle, it seems. Once you've got it picked up, in order to use I'm going to use the needle threader because this thread is a little bit thick. So the first step is to pop that through the hole so that if you can see that you're poking this thin wire through the hole, the thin wire loop. So it goes in through there. Get your thread, pop your thread through the loop and pull that back through so that your thread comes through the eye of the needle quite easily. Now, I'm not going to use a knot because I'm going to show you another skill that is useful in lots of sewing, which is to do a couple of back stitches to secure it. So what we need to do is to get our pieces of fabric. Now, I'm wanting to join along this edge. So in order to do that, I'm going to put the two together, match the ends, match that, and then we're going to sew along here. So I would do a seam that was about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters away from the edge. That's because I'm a quilter, but quilters use that width because it is big enough that you won't pull apart your sewing very easily, even if it frays a little bit. So the point that I'm going to start at is about here, which is 1/4 inch of the 6 millimeters in from all edges. I'm going to then do what's called a back stitch. So I'm going to go in one side, come up with a little stitch from the underneath, pull this through, leave a little bit of a tail because I don't want it to unravel, and go back into the same spot that I went into, come up again in the same spot, and that is one back stitch. And then I'm going to do another back stitch by going back into that same hole and coming up here. And now that is very secure. So you can pull on that, you see, and that's not going to unravel whichever end you pull on. Now we're going to sew along here with what's called a running stitch. So a running stitch is just in from the front, up from the back, in from the front, up from the back. So in order to make it reasonably firm, I'm not going to take great big stitches. I'm going to take a little stitch that's probably about 3 or 4 millimeters long. I'm going to go in there. I'm not going to pull it straight through like that because that's quite inefficient. I'm going to then come back up again, out, and just take one stitch. So we've got one stitch there. It's a bit merged with the back stitch, so it's not very clear. So I'll do another one. And we just come up and do that. So I don't have this here. Oh, yes, I do actually. I've got a clip here. So in order to keep these edges together, you can actually put a little clip on there, and that will make sure those edges are matched well. So now we go in and come up again. Just keep on doing it. Now you can, if you want to, do more than one stitch at a time. So you can go in and come up, in again and come up, even in again if you want to, and come up, and then you can pull through the 3 stitches you've got at once. See, now my stitches are a little bit uneven, but that really doesn't matter, and that one there's got a bit big, those 2, but again, that doesn't matter. I've taken the clip off because we've got down to the end where I'm going to need to sew. And when I look at this, I'd say this is a little bit smaller than the 6 millimeters, than the 1/4 inch. But again, also, that doesn't really matter. That's not what I'm about. Here I'm about both functional and also the decorative element of seeing the stitching. Although for this you won't see the stitching because we're starting by just showing how to sew 2 together. So we just keep going to the end. Now I don't go all the way to the end, just because that gives you a flexibility in this. If you're wanting to join this to something else, it gives you flexibility to be able to open that out and just match those seams. So again, I'm just stopping about there. Now I'm going to do a couple of back stitches here to secure it. So I really want to be on the top. So what I'm going to do is go backwards a little bit and come up in the spot where I want to end. So that's my spot there that I want to end. And then I'm going to do my 2 back stitches. So, whoops. 1, and then I'm going to go over the top of that stitch back into the same spot, coming up roughly in the same spot. Again, it doesn't have to be the same hole. And that way, that's all secure. That won't unravel. So that means it's time to cut off this. And we'll see. Here you have your first pieces of fabric sewn together. So you can give that seam a bit of a finger press. You'll see that you've got a very nice neat seam there. Can't really see your stitching, even though my stitching was quite big. If I tug on this, I can see it a little bit. But for handmade items, that is not important. And in fact, it can be beneficial to be able to see the handmade nature. So there, I could keep going, adding other pieces of fabric to this to make a bigger thing. Or I could use this to attach to something else now if I wanted to. So that's the first step in sewing, hand sewing. Well, hand sewing, for textile art is what I'm really interested in, but hand sewing for anything, that's how you do it. Okay, thank you for listening.